All right, so after we've made our templates and we have our design ready to go, the next thing we need to do is actually roll out our clay into our slabs. So I've got here some clay. It's obviously super thick right now. To make my rolling out process easier, whether you have a rolling pin or a small dowel, you can actually use your hand and begin to flatten the clay. This will obviously work easier if your clay has been kept nice and moist. It'll just take a little more patience if your clay is harder. Sometimes you can also sort of throw it down. You want to be careful then that it doesn't get really uneven. That can sometimes make it thinner on one edge and thicker on the other. You can even use, if you have a rolling pin to sort of tap it and begin to flatten it preemptively before you get to actually rolling it. So we are going to be rolling out our slabs. I have one of these rolling pins that makes it a little easier than if you have the dowel. But if you're using the dowel, it'll still work. It'll just take some more patience. As I'm rolling, I like to gently flip my clay so I'm rolling it evenly. And then I want to roll it out to the thickness of 2 of my roller guides together. So I've got my roller guides ready to go. Ideally, I would have one of these on each side. Since I only have the 2, I'll just continually be checking and rotating my slab and making sure it does not get thinner than my roller guide, but I want it to get to that exact thickness. Depending on the dimensions of your resulting slab from this process, you may have to re-wedge it and roll it to get enough pieces for all sides of your box. So we'll sort of keep going and see where we end up. I like to sometimes also just take my fingers and feel how thick it is. Right now I can tell it's really thick right here compared to the spot. So I'll make sure my roller guide is lined up with that area that's thicker and work on evening it out. If you roll across the entire clay, that can also be a good strategy for keeping it even, especially for you applying even pressure. Something we'll also be doing eventually, and you can even potentially do it as you work, is compressing the clay with the metal rib. We are compressing it, not scraping it. It shouldn't be picking up the clay on that edge. Sometimes I find that this phase can help me, again, just to pay attention to where it might be getting too thick or where it might be thinner. So right now it's still significantly thicker than my roller guide. So that means I need to keep going. All right. Let's compress it and see where we're at. I flipped it again. Now I'm back on the other side. I think we're very close to the thickness that we want. I just want to make my checks that it's the same width all over. And then I really want to do a good job compressing it on both sides because we really want both sides to be smooth so we can actually add the pattern to them. So I would compress it on both sides. Remember, we're not scraping up the clay, we're compressing it down. So my whole slab has been rolled out to the thicknesses of my two guides put together. It's consistent and I've smoothed both sides with the metal rib. Now I'm ready to go in and trace and actually cut out my patterns. First, I'm going to gently lay them on top and see if I can fit all four. Mine are 5x5 squares, so I'm not actually sure if I will be able to fit all of them. So I'm going to sort of play with it and see if I can. Maybe if I stagger them and put one over here. We're close. Let's see. Okay, so in a pattern sort of like this, I can get all 5 of my pieces to fit. If you can't, you can just re-roll your slab after you've cut out your initial pattern pieces. So when I'm cutting, I'm just going to use my needle tool or a knife if you have one, and my ruler. Ruler just help get the straight sides. For these sides, we're still going to be cutting so that the sides are straight up and down, regular sides, just like how we made our tile back in the fall. And then I will want to save my clay so that I can re-roll it up to trace to cut out the bottom eventually. So make sure you keep any unused clay nice and wet so we can still use it. So I'm holding the ruler down and holding my pin tool upright and tracing along. Then after I've cut out each of these pattern pieces, I actually want to keep it right on top of the cardboard. The cardboard is going to help us support our project as we work on it. It's going to be like a scaffold. So with my first piece, I can actually lift it up. I don't want to bend it. I want to be very careful to keep the edges nice and sharp and not smash them. And then I'm going to put this one over to the side while I cut out my other pattern pieces very carefully. Since I've got a nice sharp line there, I can still use that. So as you're peeling it up, if it's sticking to your board or your cloth, just be very, very, very careful not to disrupt the edges, not to squish them. I'm going to stack it against the cardboard so that the cardboard is supporting it. Potentially you could even pick it up if the cardboard is sticking with it, or you can just gently guide it back on. Oops. That's the kind of finger mark you want to try to avoid. My clay is still very soft. It hasn't yet reached its actual leather hard stage. All right, so then I've got 1, 2. I can actually stack my slabs up with the cardboard between them, which will help keep them separate. 3, 4. And there they are, nice and neat. Just like that, ready to go.